So I wasn't going into the store planning to do some sort of intelligence mission. But, listen, I'm grateful to talk to anybody, and this lady liked to talk. I could only agree with maybe 50% of the things she was saying, and then really disagree about things just completely upside down. Oh my goodness. That could be your friend, but they're nutty to believe what they believe. That might be what she thinks about me. The last time this happened, I don't know that I've ever had a conversation with a stranger in a store that lasted this long. Okay, even in the 90s, or whenever people actually did things like that, and that was normal. Somebody you just met in the store. But let's talk about the positive things first. Positive, or I guess productive things. I don't know what to say. She's really worried about what's going to happen to us in our country, that people are going to come and attack us. And, a lot of people are just worried because of all the crazy stuff that has happened over the past few years. The violence. And then, of course, you hear things from both sides like, well, violence is happening, but they did it. They did all of it. Oh, please. I'm sorry, I had to turn there. October 7th, for example. She's one of those people that really believes that all those atrocities didn't happen. I don't think she's a Holocaust denier. See, I'm not Jewish, but a lot of this conversation, I wasn't leading it that way, but she would bring it around to, the Jews do this, and the Jews do that, and the Jews are bad. And I even said to her at one point, I said, well, because my grandparents really, they came from a part of Europe that was anti-Semitic. They were very anti-Semitic, and they did blame the Jews for everything. And although they were Americans at the time World War II began, they didn't think Hitler was so bad. You know what I'm saying? And I was just so shocked as a child, because when I was in school, the Holocaust did happen. Hitler was bad. And yes, Hitler still is bad. May he not rot in peace. He's a bad guy. Bad, horrible, horrible, horrible pagan, not a Christian, please. The Christians didn't kill the Jews. Some very good Christians were killed, pastors were killed, people of conscience were killed, Jews were killed during the Holocaust, in addition to gypsies, and I believe mentally challenged people, disabled people, homosexuals. These were killed during World War II by the Germans, that horrible Nazi regime. Okay. But there are people today, and I guess this lady might be an example of it. They get whipped up into such a frenzy, just as people. I'm not saying this lady was on the level of a Hitler level, okay. But this lady believes what she hears on the social media, and once she takes a side, she takes a side. And how many times did it come up during our conversation? I tried to direct her to a Bible study called Through the Bible with Les Feldick. Because to me it's so comprehensive, and it's just so simple and so unassuming. The man was not doing it for money. And his name is not well known. He just takes you through the Bible, very simply. And he connects the Tanakh with what we call the New Testament. See, I learned a new word recently. And he does a very good job of it. No, he's not. This ministry the televised ministry began around 1991, so he'll be talking about events that occurred during that time. But yet his ministry is so timely. His explanations are in so many ways on the money, because he's talking about Bible prophecy. I couldn't believe that I'm talking to a lady that calls herself a Christian, and a nice lady, a little like me, a little kooky like me. She says, "Oh, there is not a chosen people in the Bible." I don't know how you can say you're a Christian and not believe what the Bible says. And that's why I say Les Feldick explains how God's chosen people will always be the chosen people. In the New Jerusalem, the 12 gates, each gate will be named after one of the 12 tribes of Israel. God didn't just abandon Israel. He made a covenant, and yet, as Christians, yes, he made a covenant with Abraham. As Christians, we believe that there is a new covenant, as explained to us, beginning in Matthew, and then ending in the book of Revelation, if you care to read the New Testament. But Les Feldick also talked about this, that some of the mainline Christian preachers of his time were saying, well, God's chosen people don't exist anymore. The Jews today aren't the real Jews. And it was so interesting that she was the lady in the store. She was telling me, a lot of these people in the Israeli government, they weren't even born in Israel, or they're not even from Israel. It's like, yes, because do you understand, when they formed the modern nation of Israel in 1948, I believe under the auspices of the United Nations, people had to come from all over the world where they had been dispersed for generations because of the persecution of the Jews. They were so far-flung. And finally, after the Holocaust and the aftermath of that terrible time, after World War II, the Jews were able to come back and have their own homeland where they could be left alone. And really, quite honestly, yes, God promised it to them. If the Jews were so terrible, why did God like them so much? And please don't tell me those aren't the real Jews. As Les Feldick said, how is it that people that have been away from their homeland for perhaps even thousands of years, right? If I'm not exaggerating, how do they maintain their identity as a Jew? Doesn't matter if they're in Russia or, I don't know, some other place, wherever they be. They would maintain their identity as a Jew. And being a Jew was no picnic. You were persecuted for being a Jew. Why wouldn't you just say, I'll just forget I'm a Jew, and so I could just get along and be like everybody else? But they didn't, because those are the real Jews, the Jews that will suffer for the fact that people hate them for some inexplicable reason, which we call anti-Semitism. That having been said, does the modern government of any nation do everything according to moral law? Okay, international law. Oh, yeah, who's saying, it's a violation of international law when this is happening? In Nigeria, what's happening to Christians there? What's happened to other people in Africa and the Sudan? Where are the people who are the nationalists, who are the globalists, crying foul and saying, it's violating international law, yeah. Boy, I don't know. I mean, I may not seem like the brightest bulb in the package, but I know my Bible. I know that I believe my Bible. I know that anti-Semitism has existed century after century after century, and it's been horrible and it's been brutal. And yes, some people who identified as Jews have done terrible things. I believe that is true, just as some people who identify as Christians have done some terrible things. But on the whole, are the Jews an accursed, horrible, bloodthirsty, conniving? That's what my grandparents would have agreed with. That's what Hitler said. What? I'm really trying to understand this. How people can just believe this stuff. I remember calling my relatives after October 7th, a couple of them, big mistake. Because they've all been, I don't know who got to them. Well, I don't know. It's not your fault when your grandparents thought. They're not upset what happened October 7th, and this lady was saying in the store. Well, that didn't really happen. They didn't really burn babies in ovens, but my Lord have mercy. Didn't the mother's favorites brag about it? Didn't they brag about it? And even if they didn't do it, gosh, to brag about such a thing shows you to be a real nasty son of a motherless goat. You know what I'm saying? And I'm saying something that they don't even deserve to be called. That's too nice for them, way too nice. Son of a motherless goat. It sounds mean, but silly. Wow, how can people be so brainwashed? I don't understand it. Here I am, I'm a Christian. Okay, here we go. And now she's all upset because she thinks Trump is terrible. The dollar's dropping. And then she talks about, I'm sorry, a relative dying of a fentanyl overdose. And that's the very thing that Trump is fighting, going after this wanted guy, Maduro, and his wife from Venezuela. He's been wanted since, 2020? We've had a warrant for him. And even the Biden administration had put a $25 million bounty out. If you could arrest him, you would get $25 million. And I could have said that to this lady, but I don't think she would have believed me. I mean, her thinking was so convoluted. And so, neither of us is going to win, a prestigious prize for academic excellence. Actually, I have. And whether or not we did or should, it doesn't matter. What matters is truth. I told her, well, please read, look at this series through the Bible of Les Feldick. And she's trying to show me things on her phone because she's on X, and I'm not on X anymore because that's just too many rabbit holes and too much of a waste of not a waste of my time, but it consumes too much time. And she's trying to show me stuff. And, how can two people from around the same generation with similar life circumstances, she lost a son, I'm sorry I shouldn't have said that, but you don't know who she is anyway, due to, a drug overdose, and my brother wasn't quite a son, but he was like a son in a way, I don't know, died an untimely death younger than I was, and very sad for the family. And I can't, what, I know that he had some people in his life that weren't so savory, but I can't blame a particular person or country. I could say, well, this person's from this country, therefore all of those people are bad. Bad people going to do bad things, right? And this TDS, man, it runs real deep. She just couldn't stop talking about how Trump is this and that, and he's bad, and he's really Jewish, and oh my Lord have mercy. I don't know where this came from, because in my generation, I'm sorry, do you know what generation it is? Go ahead, bro. Yeah, you go ahead, he's like going across the street. Yeah, okay. I'm just letting a jaywalker go. It was just shameful to hate Jews. Shameful! Shameful! Shameful to hate anybody. I mean, you're raised on all these sitcoms, Norman Lear sitcoms. It's bad to be racist. It's bad to be anti-Semitic. It's bad to be sexist. And all of a sudden, everything is like boop, 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 boop. What happened? What carnival ride have so many people gone on that their brains got so scrambled? Boy, would she be upset if she heard me saying this, I didn't get her number, like I might have, but she didn't offer it, and I offered to send her a link through the Bible with Les Feldick. She said, "Oh, no, I'm not doing that," but it's fine, It's like, fine, it's fine. Low trust society. But then again, who wants to listen to this lady saying the Jews are bad and the Jews are the root of all evil? And oh my goodness, I'm not even a Jew. Will anybody believe me? Will anybody believe me? But, Trump and the Jews, they're kind of in the same boat, actually. For him to be hated when he's trying to do things right, if you would listen to his speeches and not listen to what people say about him, that's the thing. Even today, I listened to part of his speech in front of the Republican retreat. And he's talking about, I think he was talking about the fentanyl overdoses and how horrible it is that this has happened to so many people. He definitely said this in the aftermath of our arrest of, what do you want to call him? Dictator Maduro? I mean, nobody else says, "Oh, you can't arrest a dictator. That's mean." About what other dictator did they ever say that about? Narco-terrorist, imprisoning people, torturing people, oppressing his political enemies, impoverishing his country. Now it's Israel and it's Gaza, blah, 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 blah. I'm sorry. Boy, if there are people out there like me, why can't I find them? Why do I find somebody that's got it wrong about important things? But then again, you have to look at the human side of things. She said, well, we have a right to disagree, blah, blah, blah. And I did tear up a few times for the loss of her son, and also things that are happening in my life. It's like, I don't like to cry. But there I was, tearing up in front of a total stranger. And poor me, but I'm not going to tell you my problems. Well, So, I don't know. You would think that somebody of my generation, about perhaps my income bracket, with similar life circumstances, would have a similar worldview. But people have all kinds of kooky worldviews these days. They don't have that spirit of truth that the Bible talks about. So, I pray, we need to pray every night that people's eyes would be opened. Because of people that doesn't know their history, of people that doesn't face reality, that, hey, the Jews are not the ones after us, as she kept trying to tell me. The Jews just want to be left alone in their own land. I'm not saying that all people who happen to be Jewish happen to be doing the right thing. Of course not. That does not negate, that does not nullify the absolute reality that Israel is God's chosen land, God's chosen people. He loved them with an everlasting love. He promised David, there will always be a descendant of yours on the throne. And we as Christians believe, we premillennialist Christians believe, that when Christ returns, he's going to be the fulfillment of that promise, because, of course, through Mary, he's a descendant of David, and through Joseph, even though Joseph was his stepfather, he's a descendant of David. So really, we all want the same thing, don't we? We all want world peace. We want a leader that isn't in it for the money. It's, we were talking about that a little bit. That isn't corrupt. That doesn't have ulterior motives. What does God need? He doesn't need anything. He can create anything he wants. What he desires is harmony and peace in human society. And human beings can't bring that about through wishful thinking, and the people that say that you can do it through peaceful means are either lying to you or incredibly naive. So I believe that what President Trump did was the right thing. Why not? If the man has had a warrant out for his arrest for this long, and previous administrations, even Democrat administrations, said he should be arrested and that he was a criminal, and Trump went in without any loss to American life in a very highly secure military compound and got this guy and his wife out alive and brought them back here to face justice in our legal system. That is not a crazy person who's out of control. That's a person who's preventing war. He's preventing further fentanyl deaths and all the crime that accompanies the drug trade. And of course, the Maduro regime was not the only regime causing problems in our hemisphere. But people, you really, really need to just stop being so delusional in your thinking that Trump is a bad guy. Nobody said that he was always a choir boy or a Boy Scout, as we say. Did he do everything 100% right? Well, he's doing everything 100% right now. That's what I think. But I don't know. Some people's minds are just so fogged with disinformation and emotion and passion that only God can cut through that noise. Thank you for listening. God bless America and Israel.